The fractured moon hung above the battlefield like a broken lantern, its shards glowing faintly as if embarrassed about the whole situation. Ryan stood beneath it, boots buried in dust that smelled faintly of burnt circuitry and something suspiciously like old socks. The war had ended an hour ago, or paused, more accurately, because the universe had decided to introduce him to someone very important without giving him time to brush his hair. He was wiping grime from his sleeve when the air shimmered and a vessel descended, its hull smooth and luminous, like someone had sculpted a teardrop out of starlight. He recognized the insignia instantly. Not friendly, not neutral, but the kind that made humans run, hide, and possibly cry. The ramp extended with a soft hum, and she stepped out. Tall, composed, sharp-eyed, and long-eared in a way that made Ryan wonder if her species heard better or just judged harder. She walked toward him with the slow precision of someone who expected fear to bloom wherever she went. Yet all she received from Ryan was the vacant half-smile of a man who'd been awake for 37 hours and no longer cared about social norms. She stopped 3 paces in front of him, staring as though deciding which of his limbs to vaporize first. "Human soldier," she said, her voice echoing with an odd metallic undertone, "you stand before me without trembling." He blinked. "Sorry, should I tremble? I can if you'd like. I just need a second to warm up." Her long ears twitched, annoyance, surprise, or maybe indigestion. "You are not afraid?" "Nope." The word left his mouth too casually, like it had been waiting there the whole time. She tilted her head, analyzing him the way a scientist studies a potentially poisonous but oddly adorable creature. "Explain." Ryan lifted one shoulder, glanced around at the wrecked terrain, then back at her. "Honestly, I've been shot at, nearly crushed by a malfunctioning cargo mech, and once trapped in a supply closet with a raccoon-sized parasite. Compared to all that, talking to someone with excellent posture isn't that scary." Her composure cracked for just a moment, the faintest flicker of confusion crossing her face. She recovered quickly, but the moment had already anchored itself between them like a tiny, glowing anomaly. "Do you not understand who I am?" "I mean, yeah," he said. "You're Commander Lyra Solin, conqueror of the Trinari Belt, strategist of the 8th Spiral, owner of some very pointy ears." Her gaze sharpened. "My ears are not pointy, they are elongated." "Sure," he said, "very majestic." For reasons unclear even to her, Lyra did not incinerate him. Instead, she breathed out slowly, lowering the energy sphere forming in her palm. Perhaps she was curious. Perhaps she was tired. Perhaps she simply couldn't decide whether he was brave, oblivious, or defective. "If you do not fear me," she said, "then what guides your actions?" "Mostly poor decisions," he replied, "but today, curiosity." The ramp behind her flickered with shifting holographic symbols, and a gust of iron-scented wind swept over them. The battlefield groaned as metal cooled and scorched ground settled. Ryan watched her closely, noting how she scanned the terrain as though expecting something else to emerge. She wasn't relaxed, not at all. And for the first time he wondered if she too was navigating unfamiliar territory. She circled him slowly, hands clasped behind her back. "You humans are unpredictable. That's our charm," he said. "That and our terrible jokes." She paused. "Jokes?" "Yeah, like, what do you call an asteroid that won't move? A meteorite stuck in its ways." Her eyelid twitched, a clear sign of suffering. That was unacceptable. "Thank you." She exhaled sharply, then turned her face toward the sky where silent ships drifted in defensive formation. "You are either attempting to disorient me," she said, "or this is truly how you behave." "This is pretty much me all the time." The wind rustled through the scorched field, carrying the faint crackle of distant static. Lyra stepped closer, studying him without hostility now, just an intense fascination that made Ryan feel like someone had forgotten to warn him about a pop quiz. "Tell me truthfully," she said, "why are you not afraid?" He looked up at the shattered moon, its fragments drifting like slow-motion tears, and for the first time his expression changed, not to fear, but something softer. Because fear never helped me, he said quietly. Not once, so I stopped giving it the wheel. Her ears tilted slightly, a small, involuntary motion that betrayed more emotion than any expression on her face. You simply stopped. Yep, that is not how fear works. Maybe not for most people, he said, but I got tired of it, and now here we are. A long silence stretched between them, not tense but oddly peaceful, interrupted only by a distant groan of collapsing metal somewhere across the battlefield. Lyra stepped back and clasped her hands more tightly. Something in her posture had softened, if only by a fraction. You are a strange human, she said at last. I get that a lot. Her gaze drifted briefly toward the horizon, as if sensing a disturbance he couldn't detect. When she looked back at him, the dangerous edge in her eyes had shifted, not gone but no longer pointed at him. Very well, she said. If you truly feel no fear of me, then perhaps it is time you learned why others do. Ryan scratched his head. Is this the part where you show me a terrifying weapon or something? No, she said. This is the part where something far worse arrives. He sighed. I knew today was going too well. And as the ground trembled beneath them, and the sky shimmered with the ripple of approaching energy signatures, Lyra turned toward the disturbance with a calmness that matched his own, proof that fear, in this moment, belonged entirely to whatever was coming for both of them. The tremor rolled under their feet like a giant waking up in a bad mood. Dust rippled across the cracked ground, and Ryan watched a pebble do a nervous little dance near his boot. Lyra's ears shifted forward, sharp and alert, catching subtle frequencies he couldn't hear. She didn't look afraid, more like deeply inconvenienced, as though the universe had interrupted her argument with him, and she intended to file a complaint. A low metallic hum rose from the horizon. Ryan squinted. Please tell me that's just your ship doing a warm-up stretch. It is not, she said. Great, because I left my anti-monster spray in my other uniform. The hum intensified, accompanied by faint glimmers flickering across the sky like reversed lightning. Lyra scanned the readings on her wrist device. Symbols shifted rapidly, glowing in sharp lines of violet. Biomechanical signatures, she murmured. A swarm. Ryan nodded solemnly. Yep, definitely left the spray at home. She shot him a look that suggested she was reconsidering her decision, not to vaporize him earlier. But before she could respond, the first of the swarm descended through the haze, an angular creature of metallic bone and pulsing blue veins, wings whirring in a blur. Dozens followed, then hundreds, the air filling with the harsh vibration of machines that almost sounded alive. Lyra lifted her arm and a shimmering shield erupted around them. The first creature slammed into it, sparks scattering. Ryan winced. They seem friendly. They consume energy, she said. Any energy. He looked at her shield. So that's like an all-you-can-eat buffet for them. That is one way to describe imminent death, yes. The shield flickered as another wave crashed against it. She grimaced. We cannot remain here. Ryan pointed to the skeletal outline of a structure in the distance, a research station half collapsed, but still recognizable by the antennas clinging to its roof like stubborn weeds. How about in there? Her ears angled doubtfully. That station is unstable. Same as me, he said, but I'm still useful sometimes. She hesitated only a second before dropping the shield and sprinting. Ryan followed, boots pounding the dust as the swarm shrieked overhead. One creature swooped low, its metallic jaw snapping. Ryan ducked, shouting, I didn't sign up for dental inspections. Lyra raised her wrist, firing a pulse of energy that blasted the creature into fragments. Keep moving. He considered telling her he was already moving as fast as a sleep-deprived human could, but he chose survival over sarcasm, temporarily. They slipped through the broken entrance of the station, just as a cluster of the swarm smashed into the structure behind them. Metal groaned. Panels fell. A cloud of dust swallowed them with a cough-inducing flourish. Inside, emergency lights flickered weakly along the corridor, casting red shadows that made everything look more dramatic than necessary. Ryan brushed debris from his shoulder. I'm starting to think your galaxy has an allergy to things that aren't trying to kill us. Lyra moved ahead, fingers gliding over the cracked control panels. This facility studied hybrid energy systems. If we are fortunate, some defenses may remain operational. Ryan glanced around. Please define fortunate in non-terrifying terms. It means the station may explode only partially instead of entirely. Wonderful, I feel so reassured. They reached a central chamber where holographic screens flickered like ghosts, trying to remember they once had jobs. Lyra activated a console, its projection sputtering before stabilizing. A map of the station appeared, pulsing with various hazard warnings. The swarm will breach the exterior within minutes, she said. We must reach the core. Let me guess, dangerous, unstable, possibly full of glowing things I shouldn't touch. Yes, perfect, my specialty. Her ear gave a tiny twitch, betraying the hint of a smile she refused to show. They moved deeper, past hallways where gravity flickered in and out. At one point Ryan floated upward unexpectedly, arms flailing. Lyra, I think the station is trying to adopt me. She grabbed his wrist and pulled him down with surprising strength. Stay close, and do not drift. I don't drift on purpose. Humans rarely do anything on purpose. He chose not to argue that. They entered a chamber lined with cracked energy conduits. A loud metallic scrape echoed from somewhere above, followed by the screech of the swarm penetrating the outer shell. Ryan felt the vibration through the floor. They sound hungry. They are, she said, and we are too large to be snacks, so they will attempt to dismantle us for parts. Well, Ryan said, at least they think I'm worth something. Lyra shot him a sideways glance, but there was a warmth there now, very slight yet unmistakable. They reached a lift that hissed open reluctantly. The platform vibrated as it descended toward the core. Ryan leaned against the railing. This is the second weirdest date I've ever been on. Date, she repeated, never mind. The lift arrived with a thud. The door slid open to reveal a massive chamber glowing with unstable light, the core surrounded by fractured machinery, pulsing like a heart on the verge of panic. Lyra stepped forward, scanning. The swarm will come here. It is drawn to the energy. We must stabilize the output or they will consume everything. Ryan looked up at a widening crack in the ceiling. Including us. She nodded. He rubbed his hands together. Well, let's save the galaxy then. She stared at him for a long breath. You truly feel no fear. Oh, I'm terrified, he said. I just don't let it drive. Her ears softened in a gesture he was starting to recognize as something close to respect. Then stay with me, she said softly. We will need each other. He grinned, was hoping you'd say that. And as the chamber lights flickered and the first of the swarm burst through the ceiling, they stood side by side. Two unlikely allies facing a threat neither could survive alone. The first swarm creature punched through the ceiling with a shriek like metal being asked to sing opera. Debris rained down. Ryan grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her behind a fractured console just as a second creature skittered down the wall, its limbs clattering in a rhythm that suggested it had never heard of subtlety. The core pulsed wildly in the center of the chamber, its light flaring hotter with every passing second. If the swarm drank too deeply from it, the entire station would collapse, and possibly the moon fragments above would join the party. Lyra peeked around the edge of the console. We need to access the stabilization node on the far platform. Ryan looked across the chamber. The platform hovered over a pit of unstable light, shaking like a bridge designed by someone with questionable ethics. I'm not gonna lie, he said. That looks unsafe. It is, she agreed. Good, just wanted to confirm. They darted out from their hiding spot, sprinting across the trembling floor as more swarm creatures descended from the shadows. Lyra's energy blasts cut through the air, each one precise, controlled and thoroughly unimpressed by the relentless enemy. Ryan swung a broken metal conduit like a makeshift staff, knocking one creature aside. It hit the wall, screeched, and burst into a shower of sparks. See, he said. All those hours practicing with a mop handle in the barracks finally paid off. You practiced with a mop. It was a dark time. They reached the platform as a surge of unstable energy flared outward, lifting Ryan's hair in a static-filled halo. He patted it down, muttering, "Great. Now I look like a lightning rod who gave up." Lyra was already at the node, her fingers flying over the controls. "The core is overloading," she said. "We must reroute the output and overload the swarm with excess energy." "Isn't that dangerous?" "Yes. Perfect, just checking." A creature lunged from the side, wings slicing the air. Ryan shoved Lyra aside and blocked it with the conduit. The impact sent vibrations up his arms, but he held firm until Lyra blasted the creature apart. She turned on him, ears angled sharply. "Why did you do that?" He blinked. "You mean not letting the metal bug slice you in half? I don't know, seemed like a nice thing to do." Her gaze searched his, something shifting behind her eyes. "You risked yourself, without hesitation." "Hey," he said lightly, "if you get sliced, who's going to yell at me for my jokes?" A creature dropped from the ceiling, screeching. Lyra reacted first, firing a pulse that splintered it before it hit the ground. Sparks rained around them, flickering in the unstable glow. "I am beginning to understand you," she said, her voice softer. "Your lack of fear is not emptiness. It is discipline." He shrugged, "or stubbornness, hard to tell some days." She turned back to the node, her fingers moving with renewed determination. "Hold them off," she said. "I just need a moment." "You take your moment," he said. "I'll play babysitter." More creatures swarmed toward them. Ryan swung, dodged, ducked, and occasionally yelped in tones that were not particularly heroic, but effective. One creature latched onto his conduit, chewing aggressively. "Hey!" he shouted, "that's borrowed equipment." He flung it away. Lyra finished inputting the sequence, her voice sharp. "Now." She slammed her palm onto the console. The core roared to life, sending a surge of energy through the chamber. Light exploded outward, blinding and hot. The swarm shrieked as their bodies absorbed far more than they could consume. One by one, they burst into radiant fragments, raining down like glowing ash before fading into sparks. The chamber fell silent except for the low hum of a now stable core. Ryan lowered his conduit, panting. "Did we win? Because if not, I'd like to officially file a complaint." Lyra stepped toward him, her expression unreadable. "We stopped the swarm, the station is stable, the danger has passed." "Good," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Because I'm running out of witty comments." Her ears softened. "That would be unfortunate." He stared. "Was that were you teasing me?" "Possibly." "Well, now I know the universe truly is infinite." They made their way back through the station, passing flickering lights and drifting debris. The corridors felt less threatening now, more like the exhausted aftermath of chaos. Ryan floated briefly in a gravity pocket again, but this time Lyra caught him before he drifted too high. "Thanks," he said. "It is easier than listening to you complain," she replied. "That's fair." Outside, the fractured moon gleamed faintly. The dust had settled. The swarm was gone. The air was strangely still, as though the battlefield was holding its breath. Lyra turned to him. "When we first met," she said, "I believed humans were reckless, fragile beings driven by instinct. And now I believe you are complicated." He grinned. "I'll take it." She studied him quietly. "Your calmness, your willingness to help, your strange humor. These things challenged my assumptions. You changed the outcome of this day." He rubbed the back of his neck. "You changed mine too, and for what it's worth, I wasn't fearless. Not really." Her ears tilted. "No. No, I just didn't want fear to stop me from doing the right thing." She stepped closer. "That is courage." He shrugged awkwardly. "Or stubbornness again." For once she smiled, soft, small but unmistakable. "Perhaps both." A ship descended behind her, its lights casting a gentle glow across the field. She glanced at it, then at him. "Our paths may separate for now," she said, "but I will remember this." He nodded, "Same." She paused, then added, and I will remember your terrible jokes." "That sounds like a threat." She turned toward her ship. "It is." He laughed, watching her ascend the ramp. Just before the door closed, she looked back once, brief, quiet acknowledgement. Then she was gone, leaving Ryan standing beneath the broken moon, feeling oddly lighter. He had walked through fear without letting it own him. He had changed someone who once terrified galaxies, and somehow, without meaning to, he had found his own strength in the process. He exhaled, squinting up at the stars. "Huh," he muttered. "Maybe I really am complicated." And the sky, still shimmering faintly from the battle, seemed to agree.